Gray Heavens by Omnium Gatherum. This is a group that has gotten some resounding acclaim within the metal community with their last couple of albums. Originally, this group seemed to fit more to the mold of traditional melodic death metal, only they had a little bit more structure to them. Only with these past couple of discs, they have included and sort of injected in a little bit more of the realm of progressive death metal. Some people will say that perhaps Omnium Gatherum has taken a little bit of a cue from groups such as Insomnium, which they do share a direct correlation, or groups such as Opeth. And these are two groups that actually, whenever you listen to Gray Heavens, you can hear a little bit of influence from. But let's talk about this 10-track affair. Let's talk about 56 minutes of new music from Omnium Gatherum, this finished product. And first things first, this is a group that I think at times is a bit underrated. I really do. I think that this is a very underrated band at times. And just for fun, if you want to see a ongoing series that chronicles underrated bands, leave something in the comments about that, indicating that you want to see that. But this group and this album starts off with very infectious metal. Songs such as The Pit and Skyline are able to blend together the gruff vocals along with a traditionalized melodic death metal approach. Only you're going to notice something different almost immediately with Omnium Gatherum, and that's the fact that they do not need to keep the tempo high in order for this to really work. Think instead of the 1990s. Think instead of bands such as Dark Tranquillity or In Flames whenever they're at more of their creative moments, where they're actually taking a little bit more time with their compositions. This is where you're going to see a lot of influence being drawn. Omnium Gatherum is one that does not need to have that high tempo, high energy all the time. It's instead one that can stay with mid-tempos, it's one that can almost dirge at moments, and it's one that elevates in the way in which it progresses. Whenever you move to a track like Frontiers, that's where the beauty starts to get injected in as well. And I understand we're using this idea of injection a good bit, but listen to the last 2 minutes of this song and tell me that the beauty, and tell me that the real, I guess, individual aspect of Omnium Gatherum's sound wasn't just injected into the end of this track in order to really give it more fierce acclaim. All three of these tracks are within 5 minutes of, 5 minutes or less. In fact, 4.5 to 5. And then you get right into Majesty and Silence, which is an apt title for this, not because it's 8 minutes of silence, but it is 8.5 minutes of Majesty. It's one that is actually able to use sort of a yin versus yang, yin versus yang philosophy as far as tempo is concerned, with the first 5 minutes of this track being largely that mid-tempo range and then moving into something a bit more aggressive. But either way, this is a song that really showcases Omnium Gatherum's desire and moments where they're able to expand and really let their compositions breathe even further. And this is where the ideas of perhaps an Opeth from their late 90s, early 2000s philosophy really comes in. And I'm really looking more so at albums such as My Arms, Your Hearse, as well as Still Life. We get a lot of moments like this on Gray Heavens. One of the great moments that I can really speak about regarding this disc, one of the great moments that sort of comes out of nowhere and wallops you, is that this album, after this 8.5 minute track, then seems to disperse out with songs that are 5 to 6 minutes. Ones that really stay within a tempered range. And then you get into Ophidian Sunrise, which really takes a lot of these same ideas that we've mentioned and amplifies it up a bit, but still feels very much within the same vein of what you've heard prior to this with songs such as Rejuvenation, Foundation, and The Great Liberation, which could be the, Rejuvenate, not Rejuvenation. If it was Rejuvenation, Foundation, and The Great Liberation, it would be the Asian series, the Asian trilogy. But it's really one that is able to give it a little bit more of that contextual breathing room, but then you go right into These Gray Heavens, which is a 4.5 minute long instrumental with, honestly, one of the most beautiful introductions that I've heard in quite some time from this group. This is gorgeous. This is one that really puts them sort of in that realm, in that universe where they're a band that is being taken seriously by a lot of people, especially within their home country, and metalheads here in America are taking notice as well. But this is where they should really get that sort of push over the top. At times, you could almost compare this to Agaloc's more beautiful but also typical moments. And by typical, I mean ones where they're not necessarily, dirging the track along and letting the atmosphere and beauty really command your attention. This is instead one where it would be an Agaloc moment where they're kind of just softly bridging one idea to the next. And that's a nice platform to be on. That's a nice place to be. Stormfront ends this track, or this album rather, very, very strongly, by the way. I find it ironic that after talking about After the Burial, and talking about the idea that you can hear a lot of similar ideas, or at least similar tones that other people, that other metal fans, that's ones that don't venture into the dark arts, the dark varieties that we often talk about here on coverkillernation, you can hear a lot of some of the same aspects, the same avenues, the same ideas that these folks like about one band, but do not even sample for another. And Omnium Gatherum feels like a band that very much fits that mold. For all of those that really explore the In Flames of the world, whether it be the old or the new, the Dark Tranquilities of the world and such, Omnium Gatherum should be legitimately the next step. It should be the next place that they look, the next real band that they go, and bands like it. Even if you want to go into a group such as an Insomnium, just to add a little bit more of a flavor to that, and then you could easily go from those two bands and jump into a Swallow the Sun, if you really want to see a progression of how one band can easily morph into loving 5 or 6. But this is a group where I feel that many folks, they scour the fringe line and they don't just jump in, and if they jumped in, they would find so much that they would really enjoy. And Grey Heavens is a great example of this. It has just a real boom to it. Now, yeah, there's seldom a clean voice in this, but there is a clean voice in this. It does come out, but that should not be something that merely keeps you away. This is an album that's very inviting. It's an album also that within your own emotional pretense has the ability and has the opportunity to change you and is willing to do so. That's what gives this band a lot of the charm and a lot of the desirability that they possess. And it's the reason why they should be heralded a little bit better. 88 out of 100. This is a strong album. A lot of folks are saying, coverkillernation, you're giving out a lot of high scores to start off this year. There's a reason for that. The reason is very simple. These are strong albums. These are ones that are showcasing terrific ability. This is almost like a layover from 2015, or a continuation of it, really. A layover would suggest something a bit different. And remember that based off of my scoring system, that's a B. Maybe a B to you is a 60. You're wrong. I don't know what you guys think about Grey Heavens. I know one person out there, a patron over at the CKN Patreon, which there's a link in the description for anybody who wants to check that out, who will be very excited to see this album review. I'm very excited to hear all of the things that we've discussed. And we'll no doubt be able to add more to it in the comments below. I invite you to join him in doing so. What did you think about this album? What do you think about Omnium Gatherum? Let me know. I'm coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time.